Hello, welcome to the Warp Zone.
I'm Phil Villareal.
The return.
I'm José Zozaya. Now I turn the mic on. I'm happy to be back. Yes.
I'm Sean Newgent.
And let's get back at it. So Jose found some interesting news today. It's why don't you tell us about it, Jose?
Sure thing, Phil. And I knew this would pique both of you guys' interests because I'm coming at this very late in the game. But considering the stakes that are in the Cobra Kai Netflix series now, it seems like there's so much of a groundswell of support for it. I mean, I think you two would count yourselves as, viewers who have enjoyed it. I'm surprised to find out the creators of the series, apparently Sony says they're going to have nothing to do with this relaunch, that they own the rights to the movie property and they're going to release something in 2024. And the creator of Cobra Kai says, well, I think they wish them well. They have nothing to do with the writing and filming process, one. And two, it won't involve any of the characters they've been, involving in the series over the past several seasons. So I'm just like, you would think a studio, if they were going to do this, would want to bring on board a property that's gotten so much positive feedback, response, attention, the viewership. I'm sure Netflix would tell you has been really good. So I don't know, I'm kind of scratching my head on screen and actually, metaphorically about the decision. What do you guys think? Like, what's your impression reading this first thing this morning?
That's really strange to me because we've got Will Smith, who is kind of the spear, like at the head of the spear of both the Cobra Kai and at least the previous Karate Kid films. So maybe this reflects that he's not going to be involved in that movie project. Is he being cut out going forward? That's what I don't understand, because I thought Will Smith was the master of all things Karate Kid, but there seems to be a little there's like separate groups coming in. It's almost like Cobra Kai is Miyagi-Do, and then this new movie is like the real Cobra Kai. So maybe we're gonna have like a multiverse clashing eventually between both Karate Kid verses. What do you think, Sean?
And then
That's what I'm thinking of. We're looking at the Deadline article here that kind of discusses it. It seems so weird to have a Karate Kid that isn't adjacent to Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai is just so popular right now. So you'd think this would have something to do with that, and hopefully nothing to do with the Jackie Chan Karate Kid, which I know you're a big fan of, Phil.
And for the record, Phil and Sean, Sony did distribute the Jackie Chan Jaden Smith version. So Sony still has those, intellectual rights from when that remake came out.
Yeah, and Will Smith also produces EP's Cobra Kai, at least. So is he out on this new movie? Because the last movie was, so awful, as we all had to suffer through that. Those of us who were foolish enough to watch it, at least. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the more Karate Kid, the better. I kind of catch a little bit of shade in that message, like, oh, we wish them well. Like, it's like, good luck, guys. You don't have our help. So I don't know how much well they actually wish this other rival Karate Kid project, but more the better. Let's see what comes out of it. Not all Karate Kid things are great. Got to remember back to the next Karate Kid, and of course the Jaden Smith movie, which probably came close to burying that franchise until Cobra Kai came out of nowhere to save it on YouTube of all places.
Even Karate Kid 3. Karate Kid 3 is such a bad movie. Just the fact that Cobra Kai has been able. Now it's so good because Cobra Kai.
It gave us silver.
Yeah. And Cobra Kai has just made that movie so much better somehow. That's the beauty of the show.
It helps. It laughs at it. That's the key. It sees the ridiculousness of Silver as a character, and it just pushes it to the max. But Sean, tell us about the anime that you've been watching, and I have too.
Well, you have too. You've become an anime fan now. You sat through an entire 10-episode anime. Yeah. Big claps. Cyberpunk Edgerunners. It's pretty good. I don't think I was quite as enamored with it as a lot of people. I mean, this is doing huge numbers on Netflix. It's got great reviews from everyone. I thought I liked it. Phil, I'm gonna turn to you since you're the non-anime fan.
Yeah, it was refreshing. I enjoyed this series. Great opening song by Franz Ferdinand. Like, if you might remember them from back in the day, they're like an oldies band now, basically. But like, this is a really fun, cheesy song. I never skipped the intro. I watched every single intro. But I loved hearing that song 10 times. Not joking at all about that. But yeah, I like how they don't hold back. To me, this kind of sifts through the mess that was the release of Cyberpunk 2077, and what was it, 3 years ago now? One of the most disastrous game releases ever. They pulled it down from both the Xbox and PlayStation stores at the time. It was so bug-ridden and awful, while this was supposed to be one of the best games of the year. And somehow it's a same creative team behind it has created this really fun show, like very inappropriate for kids, but this is clearly for adults. You've got a lot of like off-color humor, bad language, all sorts of things that you wouldn't really want kids to see, but that's kind of what makes it. Sean, how does this compare with content-wise, at least with how hardcore this is?
We're just starting from a spot of like already.
I mean, as far as anime are concerned, this is the most
somewhere down the line
dirty probably that I've seen in quite a for. There are some shows that are really hard, are a lot of cussing, a lot of violence, all that. But this, I was surprised just in the first episode how far they went, because this is Studio Trigger, who is very well known for in recent years they've done Kill la Kill and stuff. They've done some pretty edgy stuff, but they've never gone this far. The director behind this worked on Neon Genesis Evangelion. He's worked on Gurren Lagann, some really big name anime stuff, and you can see those influences in here as well. Especially Gurren Lagann, the plot structure to me is exactly the same. And
I thought you were going to say it's tame compared to your normal stuff, but wow, that makes me feel like I'm a true anime viewer now, Sean.
The only comparison I have to that tone is Black Lagoon, which is 15 years old now. But if you've seen Gurren Lagann, you've kind of seen the same plot structure. The only issue with this is that Gurren Lagann is 27 episodes. This is 10 episodes, so it doesn't have quite enough time to build those characters, and really, the ending to me just came out of nowhere.
Cool.
All right, Jose, what have you been watching? You've seen anything that you'd throw out to our Warpzone watchers?
For the watchers, if I told you guys, I feel like I'm circling back to stuff that like the new seasons are revisiting. If you remember the DC cartoon, the Harley Quinn show that's on HBO Max, I guess only recently I found out they put out the third season. I'm very happy they did. It seems very condensed. You're not getting these 20 episode seasons, I think, for this show. What that says about the time they want them to spend writing and putting out the content for HBO Max, that could be a whole other conversation, gentlemen. But it was fun, just to sort of give you like a little synopsis, I'd call it. You leave season 2 where in the show they talk about, Harley makes a stand for love. And so now you've established her and Poison Ivy as a couple, and now navigating, I think, their past, relationship issues, and sort of reintegrating a lot of the old rogues gallery of characters that are still involved in the show. It's just really refreshing. It really is. Like, it feels like, this is the most, I don't know how I would phrase it. I feel like it's its own unique take on all these characters. You saw Batman the Animated Series. I think we love these characters, but it's so unique in the humor, the tone, the voice they give the characters, that it's refreshing. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I can see this as sort of like, a parallel universe where this is how these characters behave. And I think that the writing is still on point. The animation design is really nice, crisp, and it's fun to look at. It's fun to like listen to the voice acting, the way they set the episodes up. So I would wholeheartedly recommend, to anyone who hasn't jumped on that show, animation, it's fine. It treats it very much like it would be I think you forget sometimes that they're animated characters because the language, it's so out there for a DC cartoon. Like it's very much an adult show. So I would give it a shot if you guys think it's a different way to get to know your favorite DC villain characters. It's really fun.
I've heard so many good things about this show. I'm so glad that you're pushing me in that direction. That's the only thing that ever gets me to watch things is when people have such passionate, reasoning for wanting to see a show. But I'm kind of on the edge of. Sean got me to watch Cyberpunk. He's gotten to watch me to watch many shows. I'm definitely going to be all in on Harley Quinn thanks to the push from you, Jose. So yeah, love it.
Sure, Phil. And there's familiar names. I don't know if it's sort of like people you might not think about, like Alan Tudyk shows up as a great voice presence. Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang. Lake Bell, Christopher Maloney is apparently Commissioner Gordon, which took me like a couple episodes to realize. So it's like, just sort of finding familiar faces in a property you wouldn't have thought of. And there's so many different unique things about this that I'm like, okay, give it a shot. This was well worth it.
Yeah, I watched part of season 1 and was very surprised by how funny it was and heartfelt, I guess, in a way.
They seem very real. Like it's not the sort of like, episodic thing where like you only ever see these characters once every 5 episodes. Like, no, you're following them the whole way throughout. So you're really getting to know their idiosyncrasies, their weaknesses, their strengths, all that.
And I kind of fell off just watching other things, but then I heard a spoiler alert that John Constantine shows up in season 3, which, what? So really touches on a lot of DC
They cover
characters.
so much. And it's such meta commentary. Like you throw in a Billy Bob Thornton reference somewhere, you're just like, okay, this is obviously speaking to like our generation. Like if you grew up watching, like these are familiar names. So this is very, very entertaining, very rewarding.
This really seems like something that's so streamable. It kind of maybe continues off that momentum of Peacemaker. I think Harley Quinn might have come out a little bit before, so it's just great to see. We're just getting these different peaks at the DC universe, especially ones that are kind of more for more mature audiences. It's just really fun to have that out there, and what a great voice cast! Just hearing you touch on those actors that they've included.
Do we want to touch on Andor? I don't know that any of us care enough to touch on it, but it is.
I definitely care because it's based on the best Star Wars movie ever made, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
It is a Rogue One offshoot, so because of that, and I'm with Phil, I will give it a fair chance. Although, what do you think, Phil, when you start hearing people throw around phrases like it's Star Wars' Blade Runner? And I hear people throw that, I'm like, wait a minute, like, time out. We haven't even gotten to see this yet. So it becomes the embargo for the guys talking about it where they got to see the previews. I need to see it to believe it. I'll put it that way.
Star Wars is batting 1,000 on live action series based on Star Wars universe so far. I mean, maybe some might argue with me. Some people do not like Han Solo. I can give them that, but to me, Han Solo was really great fan service. Nice to see Ewan McGregor back in that role. Maybe that's not as good a show as a Book of Boba Fett or, of course, Mandalorian. But to me, it's like they gave you what you're expecting, at least. Andor, to me, the trailers do not look interesting. But I love Rogue One so much that, of course, yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a shot. I'm going to believe in this until it steers me wrong. So we'll see. But, Sean, you're a Rogue One hater. Probably not going to watch Andor, correct?
I've been reading a lot of reviews where I might actually turn this on. The early reviews, critics have seen 4 episodes. Most of them have come to the consensus that the first 2 episodes are so slow and boring, which, okay, you got me there. And then the 3rd episode really pays off. And I'm hearing that Blade Runner sort of thing. I'm hearing it's the best Star Wars show so far.
Wow. Which just says something. If you're a Mandalorian fan and you still feel like, Boba Fett and Obi-Wan hit the notes they were supposed to hit. So then you wonder, what note is this supposed to hit? And 2, maybe a question to throw back to you guys is, when you go into a show where like they want to build and flesh out these characters, does it take away from your investment knowing, because we saw Rogue One, Phil, we know how this ultimately ends. So is this story, is this journey for the characters worth it?
That's a great point. Yeah, it is. It does hang over. It's like it's not going well for any character in this series. Although sometimes Star Wars is the brain trust behind Star Wars now. They're the masters of retconning. They're the masters of saving characters you thought were just gone, and that's a very bad thing in most cases. Like, why did we see Emperor Palpatine back? We've got an entire series ready for Ahsoka, who like no one. I certainly never imagined she would have survived anything after Order 66 in the Clone Wars, but apparently she's still around. Find out how that happened. So like maybe there will be some path out for some of these characters if they latch on to the public. But yeah, like I like, to me the whole pull of Rogue One is that it's doomed going in. Like to me it's like the Battle of Thermopylae, which the movie 300 is based on. It's like people who are just fighting valiantly just in the face of doom. There's something glorious about that. That's why Halo Reach is my favorite story in a Halo game. It's not going to work out for these characters, but they're making this final gallant stand. So I think that's something to embrace. I hope that this is good Star Wars, which has been the TV, not bad Star Wars, which has been the sequels, and especially the wretched Episode 9. So this is the light that Star Wars fans can cling to. But what I'm wondering for you guys, I think it's probably time to just get a little check-in. Is anyone else watching both Ring of Power and House of the Dragon? How are you comparing those two? I'll just kick it off a little bit by saying I'm kind of impressed with Ring of Power. It's more than I hoped it was. House of the Dragon kind of tailing a little bit. I like the show, but it's no Game of Thrones, and it's kind of like it needs something else to kick in for me to care about this going forward. But what about you, Sean? What have you watched either show? What are your impressions of either so far?
I tried both of them. I fell asleep watching House of the Dragon episode 1 because, as I described it, it's like PBS masterpiece theater. It's just, I know that there are big battles ahead and there's probably a lot of exciting stuff, but it just is not grabbing me. I don't care about these characters. I don't care about the backstory of Game of Thrones. I lost all goodwill for Game of Thrones with season 8, basically. So I don't really care necessarily. And Rings of Power is kind of the same thing, where I don't need this. I think the Peter Jackson trilogy stands on its own. We won't talk about The Hobbit. But Rings of Power, I started it and just, it wasn't engaging me. It looks very good. It obviously has millions and millions of dollars poured into it, but it's just this veneer. There's nothing behind it to me.
Jose, what about you? You sampled either of these?
I've little by little, Phil, to piggyback off Sean's point, because we do have to talk about The Hobbit, I think, with Rings of Power. And the point I would make, Phil, is why is it that, to House of Dragon's credit, fairly or unfairly, the world feels a little more lived in. It feels tangible. It feels touchable, relatable. I get it. It's medieval, and that's the metaphor. Like, we're trying to go back in time. It's fantasy. But, like, for me, it's sort of like, because The Hobbit has this, visually, the design choices are the sheen. And I don't know. And for Rings of Power, if you all like have seen the episodes, like it just sort of feels like it's too virtual. I get like it's a lot of CGI. So is it, to Peter Jackson's credit, and perhaps in some sense with the HBO showrunners, that for the physical sets, I feel like I can relate more to what they're doing. It feels more real. It may not be, but that feels like something I can invest in a little easier than the glossiness of The Hobbit or Rings of Power. I don't know if you guys agree, disagree.
I think we can wrap this around to our discussion of Star Wars and why these TV shows tend to work better is because they're using a lot more practical. They're bringing it back, and you can invest in that world better. It's a lot easier to invest in that when you're not staring at some video game, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, I don't know how you feel about that, if you're a CG fan or...
Oh yeah, anyone who like me was raised in the 80s and 90s is all about practical. Like especially my generation was deeply wounded by the early advances of CGI and how just awful it is. I'm talking Scorpion King, talking the Mummy movies, where it was just so wretched. Now it's really good. It's hard to distinguish between the two many times, but like to me, when you come in with Stranger Things and it's like it reconnects with more of the practical stuff, it's just much more relatable. It just seems much more genuine, even if it's like a blatantly fake puppet. It's just like something that you know is there. With CGI, just in many cases seems like cheating, and if you can tell it's CGI, it just takes you out of the moment. Uh, there's just like much more of a theatrical connection with practical whenever you can use it. So I always appreciate that when I see it. Um, I will say that Game of Thrones, they're leaning hard into the kind of the adult themes, or sorry, House of the Dragons leading hard into the adult themes that Game of Thrones is known for. You'll see Rings of Power going off in a different direction. This is very family friendly stuff. I think it's kind of two sides of the same coin, but and I don't even know which one I like better. It's tough for me to decide. I expected so little from Rings of Power that I'm kind of appreciating whatever good it does do. And I'm not necessarily saying to go out and watch this. I mean, there's a reason we're not talking about these Hobbit movies. It's a step up from those, which is nice. And this is if you see one franchise on the way up, one another on the way down, they might be intersecting a little bit in the middle, and that's maybe where we're at right here. I probably would still prefer a little bit House of the Dragon, though. Are you guys going to continue these, or are you kind of done with them?
If nothing else, then to sort of get a sense, I think these two are touchstones for obviously incredibly popular properties that, like we are doing right now, guys. Like we're talking about them and we can have these discussions and break them down. Like I might be in it more, or I might keep my interest in it because it helps sort of keep a creative conversation going. We get to sort of, I don't want to judge, but we might get to say, you know, do we like the decision that the showrunners, the writers, the editors, the designers made? Because I still have love for both properties. I guess I don't know if I wait till the end of a season to determine which one, if we're doing a, you know, Batman v Superman, Yankees versus Red Sox type matchup, like which one actually won the day. Maybe just for the competition of it would be interesting.
Sean, what about you? Are you done with both? Are you going to stick with one?
I don't know that Lord of the Rings I'm going to have anything to do. I don't care about the lore enough. I'm sure there are fans of that. I mean, Tolkien wrote so much random lore, and if you're into Middle Earth, this is probably going to be a good show for you. House of the Dragon, I might jump back on. It depends. The end of the season, it might have a little bit of a Westworld season 1 sort of thing, where I started Westworld season 1, could not get into it, jumped back into it when it was over and realized, wow, this is amazing. So I might give it a second chance once it's completely out.
And Sean, you didn't finish the current season of Westworld though, did you?
No.
Yeah, and that was one thing I really respected about you, Sean, is you broke free of the clutches when it just wasn't earning your keep anymore. I have stuck through the bitter end. I regretted every moment I spent with the most recent season. I like almost everything on HBO to some degree. Like it's just at least interesting, you know, the production level, the intelligence, the writing will keep me through. But another one got me bad. It was the new Pretty Little Liars, which definitely seemed like a remnant from the CW. They just kind of like threw it on HBO Max. It's really bad. I watched the entire season. I'm embarrassed to admit that. It's rough. The Gossip Girl, I got the Gossip Girl reboot. Not a lot of people heard of that one for good reason. After one episode, I was done with that one. I should have done that with Pretty Little Liars as well.
Do they reek of the freeform and CW type dialogue, Phil?
Very much, and that's not necessarily a down, thumbs down for me. I can get into that. Like,
sure.
Big fan of cheesy TV for what it's worth, but it's just there's so little imagination in this, and I liked the earlier Pretty Little Liars seasons. That's why I came back to this one, but no, it's just so bad, and it's very disappointing. So like a down moment for HBO Max.
So is this like a 90 Day Fiance kind of a a hate watch, or do we love watch it?
I was so miserable. The thing with me is, if it's a mystery and it has a solution, I'll want to stick around to see what the answer is to this. And every single big reveal on Pity Little Liars is always going to let you down. And this one, this one beats them all. It's just so awful. It might be worth it just if you want to witness the truly horrendous final episode where they reveal who the manipulator of everyone is at the end. It just makes no sense. It's just so dumb. But yeah, like that's what gets me. I'll probably sit through anything, no matter how miserable, if it has some sort of mystery hook with the big reveal at the end. That's what I'm a sucker for, unfortunately.
I hope Glass Onion would not do that to you when the time comes for that, Phil. Considering Knives Out, I remember watching the movie, that experience, and I was like, yeah, this was a really fun whodunit, where like I also have to know how the mystery ends. So that one I think I know I will be waiting for that one much more than Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if I can speak to bad TV, there was a season premiere on Thursday of my favorite Ghost Adventures. One of the worst television shows that I can't stop watching. Zach Bagans is beyond the realm of, he's just so entertaining for no reason. This episode was a demon possession, and the guy said he like ran away from the demon to the top of his house and tried to parkour to the next house over and broke his ribs, and they told him he was psychotic, but he blamed it on the demon. It was an absolute joyride. And every episode of Ghost Adventures, it's all bunk. There's nothing. It's all editing. They're not catching anything. These guys are all actors, but it's so much fun because it's so ridiculous. And they treat every like, oh no, this guy's calling us because there's a demon in the house, and they treat it with such immediacy. And the way they edit it, where they're all driving in their convoy, like they have to save this guy from a hostage situation. It's so much fun. If you don't have to believe in Ghost to watch, if you go in thinking I'm going to watch like a B movie and treat it like that, you're going to have a lot of fun.
I don't know why I feel like Nathan Fielder could pick up a couple points from Ghost Adventures the way you're describing this, Sean.
Zach Bagans and Nathan Fielder are very similar people. Zach Bagans, if you ever see just his presentation style, the way that he enunciates, he sounds just like Nathan Fielder. It's bizarre, but I love that because he's playing it straight. Like Fielder, this is a joke. Zach Bagans plays it straight, and it's hilarious. It's well worth a watch, especially since 90 Day Fiancé's new seasons aren't worth having TLC or Discovery Plus, I should say.
Soon to be Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever they want to rename this.
Well, we're reaching the end of our time. So, any final thoughts, gentlemen?
My final thought, Sean, is you've been preaching Ghost Adventures for so long. I've never watched it. Maybe I will now because you're wearing me down, man. You're starting to wear me down. So
give that new episode a shot and learn to love Zach Bagans.
My last thought, and I'm sure we can come back to this next time we warp, because Sean, you mentioned Constantine showing up in a property, and doing my reading, apparently he's coming back.
With like, Keanu.
Which I'm just like, okay, but anything Keanu, I think you've got me already very interested. So I just will wait. I will wait to see what other nuggets they decide to drop in the reporting.
Maybe that's worth us revisiting next time. I haven't seen that movie in 15 years. All I remember, it was very green.
That's a movie. I will admit that is a movie, guys. If I see it playing on TNT or wherever it lives on those syndication reruns, I will stop to watch that one. It's just like a fun rewatch for me for whatever reason.
I will watch it and I will report back to you. Maybe I'll love it. Probably not. I hate
Maybe
everything.
not, but that's okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Until next time, I'm Sean Nugent.
I'm Phil Villareal.
And I'm José Zozaya. Thanks for coming into the Warp Zone, everybody.
We will see you on the next episode.